And this is Real Estate Underground.
Greetings and salutations, Real Estate Undergrounders. It's Ed Matthews with the Real Estate Underground. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today is a really cool episode because, one of the things that I'm passionate about and our guest is passionate about is affordable housing and, providing clean, safe, and well-appointed homes for folks who work hard for a living and usually have more than one job. And so, we invited Franco Perez from Franco Mobile Homes to join us today, and we're going to talk a whole lot about affordable housing, as well as his experiences both in his backyard out in California, as well as in the Midwest and upper Northwest. So Franco, welcome to the show. I'm really excited to have this conversation, and let's get on.
Cool. Thanks for having me, Ed.
Yeah,
I'm excited too.
My pleasure. So, I came across you, had to be on LinkedIn. And so, been watching your business and, honestly, man, I have a ton of respect for what you do and your vision and how you do it. And so for those folks that may not have found out about you yet, why don't you explain who you are and kind of, how we got here?
Yeah, sure. How we got here. I guess it really, long story short, moved here from the Philippines at a young age. There was a weird situation where my parents split. My dad was the only breadwinner. My mom was I was 17 at the time. I ended up growing up with the single mom and my younger sister. Dropped out of school just to work full time to help my mom pay for rent and just to keep up every single month at the end of every month worrying about the stresses of if I'm going to be able to pay for rent this month. And I remember these really hard moments of having to borrow money from my friends or family just to make ends meet. And it was really the hardest point of my life. And that is kind of I say that because ever since then, that pain right there, I know that currently today there's people going through that pain. And when I got into real estate, I ended up becoming a real estate agent, did pretty well at doing regular real estate, but I hated it because I ended up gravitating towards helping the richest people I knew get the best investments that they could. And unfortunately, it pained me so much to have to turn away people and tell them, hey, you don't make enough. You don't have enough as a down payment. Once you do, come back to me and I'll be able to help. And unfortunately, that's kind of the real estate world today. And I hated that so much. So I wanted to find some way that I could help those people that were in my shoes back then. How can we create a stepping stone that help people get out of that rental rat race? Pursued trying to work with the government on affordable housing. Realized I didn't like working with the government that much and came across mobile homes and was shocked that there's so many mobile home parks across the country. There's so many mobile home parks in many metro areas. I'm out of the San Jose area, and there's so many hidden mobile home parks in the Bay Area where you wouldn't be expecting mobile home parks.
Right on.
And then got into helping people get out of that rental rat race into their first piece of through mobile homes and watched people financially benefit and get their first stepping stone into assets. And then from there, they can sell on into getting into that real estate piece of ownership too. But that's how we grew to where we are today. And now we're converting a lot of old mobile home trailer like homes and turning them into massive 1,500 square feet to 2,000 square foot luxury style mobile homes. So that's what we're doing today.
That's amazing. And so just to be clear, you're renting those or you're selling those?
So the park itself, the land is being rented, but what's clear is you own that home that's above it, and you also own the contract that you have with that location as well,
Gotcha.
which has the big value in it as well.
Right on. Okay. So I mean, it's amazing. The fact is that one of the hidden impacts of the 2008 Great Recession, right, is that a whole bunch of general contractors shuttered their businesses and went on and did something else. And what that did was profoundly impact availability of affordable housing throughout the country. The last I read, I want to say it was like just under 4 million affordable housing units are needed in the next 10 years to keep up with demand. And there aren't enough hands and feet running to make it all happen. So, what you're doing is really amazing. And there are a lot of states out there. I live in Connecticut, so I know the Connecticut rules, but there's a lot of states here that are mandating or beginning to mandate affordable housing. At least 10% of your housing stock in each town here in Connecticut needs to be affordable housing. And if it's not, then what our legislature is doing is looking at increasing property taxes so that people are highly motivated to get over the not in my backyard thing, and actually allow properties to either be rezoned or so that you can put in affordable housing. In fact, there's also a lot of programs throughout the country. In Connecticut, it's called 830G, which basically is a zoning override. So you can buy a residentially zoned property, and as long as you adhere to building code and local safety codes, and a little weird, but I guess I understand why, the largest fire engine in the fleet of the town you live in has to be able to do a K-turn in your complex. Don't know why, but that's there. And if that's the case, then you can build, in my world, it's multifamily. And you just, there's a covenant, I think it's a 40-year covenant that you'll provide 30% of the housing stock within that multifamily property for affordable housing. And that does apply to mobile homes as well. So, it's an interesting thing. And I'm seeing this all over the country now, and I'm sure you are as well.
Oh, absolutely. And part of why my experience with the government too is kind of frustrating as well, is that, what really classifies as affordable housing and what does, sometimes a lot of these government funded programs like Section 8 or low rent situations don't always benefit people as much as they think it does, whereas I feel like it's so important to create affordable ownership opportunities, right? Because there's all of these benefits that people are able to get from owning a home or owning real estate, and it's unattainable. And that gap between who can afford and who can't afford is widening, and it's only getting worse, right?
Without a doubt.
And that's the key thing. And what we're finding with this mobile home financial model is that it's really a hybrid ownership, and you're able to grasp a lot of those benefits of ownership at an entry level cost, right? A more attainable, less down payment, more comfortable payment, but you still get a lot of the home ownership benefits. You have appreciation, you get tax benefits, you get to have benefits from getting a mortgage on that home too, versus having all of your money going towards rent, right? And that's it's really the first step to generational wealth, and it's so important.
Without a doubt. And so the question I have is, from a mortgage perspective, do these properties, do they qualify for FHA in the 3% down program, or like how are people financing these?
They don't yet. So FHA and those they don't for inside these mobile home parks. The big benefit of FHA is the very low percentage down payment. But one thing to keep in mind is that with these price points, it's much lower than regular real estate, which allows for the down payment to be less. So we're typically seeing 10% down for a 25-year mortgage on these loans.
Okay. And, typical price point for some of the properties you're working on, I'm curious about that.
Yeah. So my area, it might shock people in most of the country, but keep in mind that these numbers will change based on different areas. So in my area, I'm in San Jose in the Silicon Valley. Average rent for a 2-bedroom apartment is about $3,500 a month. Average median purchase price for a single family home is $1.6 million, right? Wow. So that's a big gap in between, right? And shocking, but this is kind of happening in many metro areas. Now, in our area, for example, the median mobile home for like something that's decent, 1,500 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, we're looking at about $330,000. So with that, what you'll see is a down payment of 10% is about, instead of a big, massive 6-digit down payment for a single family home, they're able to put about $35,000 down and start, paying a mortgage. Their total housing payment the mortgage would be about $2,800 and their space rent would be about $1,100. So in total, their payment's just a little more than if they were to be paying for a rental on an apartment.
So if you can afford, pretty good chance you can afford the mortgage on this. I mean, the spread, I'm just marveling at the spread, right, of the average home. I just did some quick math, and the mortgage on a 1.6 on an average house in your area is at a 7% rate is $10,645 a month. My God.
Yeah. Now these numbers that I'm saying are big, but the same goes in a lot of other metro areas, right? Like Atlanta or Austin and that sort of thing. Like the numbers might not be that high, but we're really talking ratios here, right? Like it could be a median sales point of 600,000 and it could be a rent of 2,000, but the mobile home element in between is really key, that it's accessible as a stepping stone to get you out of that rental rat race, right?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, it's just fascinating. We live in the same country, but our financial worlds are entirely different, right? Because the average. So I live in central Connecticut. I don't live in the fancy part, where all the rich people hang out. I live in central Connecticut where we have cows and horses, and the average home around here is about the same, little bit more than what your mobile homes cost in your area. So just to give you an idea of the difference, it's crazy how the difference in economies and cost of living.
Oh, exactly.
Only 3,000 miles.
Yeah, totally. I wanted to touch on too is like fairness of value, because people are gravitating to these areas like because they have good job opportunities, because they have good school, right? And that's it's we need to keep it fair and equal for middle class people to be able to survive and live in this area, right? So like our teachers, I'm very passionate about helping these teachers get home ownership as well, because they're such important people to our society. But I know a lot of teachers that are pushed out of these metro areas. They can't raise children in our areas. They can't afford housing in this area if they don't already own homes, right? I just helped a few teachers, and they're so grateful that they get to stay in this area because they own a mobile home, and it's really allowing for the people to stay.
Yeah, I mean, just doing quick math on that $10,645 a month average payment, that means you've got to make about $426,000 a year. That's thinking, holy cow. And that's just keeping your housing costs at 30% of your income, right? It's just it's
and that brings it back to that wealth gap situation. If your family didn't already own a home, if they don't have some sort of huge inheritance, it's kind of like the American dream of home ownership for so many people is getting further and further away.
Yeah.
And we can't let that happen. I that's why I'm so passionate about this, is we got to keep that opportunity available. And whether you're in a huge metro expensive area like ours, or any other cities or any other metro areas, right? It's just we can't let this gap keep spreading at the rate it is. And with construction being more difficult and with more people going into these areas, it's just getting worse and worse.
And super expensive, right? What, as a general contractor, what you could build, at least in this area at 105, 110 a square foot is now 150 to 200 a square foot, depending on where you are. And that's just material cost, labor costs, right? I mean, that's not a developer gouging anybody. That they're making the same amount of money. Everybody else is making a lot more. So it's crazy.
Oh, totally.
So I know that you have expanded your business outside of California as well. I believe you're in, did you say Montana when we were talking about?
So a friend of mine's doing something in Montana. I've been consulting for a guy opening a park in Austin, and then and another one in Nevada area, and exploring Phoenix areas. With that, I mean, it's really kind of a national thing, and it really makes sense in mostly these bigger cities and metro areas that have these huge entry level costs for regular real estate. Oh, I'm sorry. You touched on the construction side of it. And I think that's very important to mention as well, is because that problem of construction, and when you relate it to how we're building these homes, it's so important to mention that too, because like you said, getting contractors, the cost of building homes are getting more and more expensive. And if we could imagine, cars before were only really affordable by the wealthy and the rich, only until it was built on an assembly line in a very fast, streamlined process is when they were able to get it cost effective for everybody to be able to afford a car, right? And we have to innovate and change the way we build construction and how we build these homes, these mobile homes that we're building. They are actually built in a factory on an assembly line, and we're able to cut so much cost and basically get more output per construction worker and be able to build so much faster. And plus, not only that, we save more on the environment. We use less material, less waste, and that's something that needs to be understood about what we do as well, is we have to change the way we're building homes and keep it very cost effective as well. And that's exactly what we're doing with these homes. And if you see our YouTube stuff, you can see how they're being built. You can see the beauty and the quality of how they're being built. And
it's interesting because I mean, the average waste on a regular single family homes usually, I don't know, 12 to 15, maybe 18%, right? So I'm curious what the waste is on a mobile home, it's being built modularly like that, or in a
I was just talking to a factory consultant the other day, and he said on an average site built home, we have 3 large truckloads of dumpsters per 1,500 square foot of real estate built. On our homes, 1,500 square foot home, we have less than a half of a dumpster alone. And that's huge. It's a huge difference because, and if you think about it, it makes so much sense because when we're building on site, you have to transport so much material, and many times it's cheaper to just throw it away versus reuse. When you're building in a factory, if you imagine the lumber, you're cutting so many pieces, but guess what? It's easy for you to just restore that piece so that it can be used somewhere else later down the line. And the two benefits of that is, one, you're spending less on material and because you're reusing, and the other benefit is saving the earth by not wasting that much material as well.
Yeah, because one of the other things that a lot of people, I think flippers and folks that do what we do for a living, value-added multifamily investors as well as general developers, the quality of the lumber that you get today is very different than the quality that we got 30 years ago, right? And the reason being is that there's been so many trees taken down, and they are replanting. They're doing the responsible thing and replanting, but they're forcing growth. So the trees that grow that are replacing the old growth are far more weak. And that's why building codes have changed, where like here in Connecticut, you can't build a single family home with 2x4s anymore. You have to use 2x6 construction. And it's because of that, right? So there is wherever you fall on the political spectrum or wherever you fall on climate change and all that, there is a structural reality of the fact that a 2x4, a 2023 2x4 and a 1995 2x4 are not the same from a structural perspective.
Yeah,
they're not even close.
And no matter which side of that you're on, the cost benefit is going to help you regardless, right? So
right on,
that's the most in many cases.
Yeah. So in terms of, so I think I understand how your customers win, right? How do you win in this? Like what's the other part of the business? I mean, obviously you're creating these and selling them, but is there a rental aspect as well? You mentioned the land. That's what I'm curious about.
Yeah. So if we're talking on the investor side, it is a little bit complicated and difficult to explain, but there's our business element is really, we really try to be everything and anything service for anything around mobile homes, right? So we really started out by just being kind of a brokerage agency and just helping resell mobile homes to people getting out of renting and want to get into these. And then we got into development of these. So now a big part of our element is helping consumers, these people that live in these mobile home and mobile home parks. They're like, hey, I'm having a growing family. This home is too small for me. Can you retrofit our lot so that we can have extra bedrooms? We can double our square footage. And that's exactly what we do. We go in, we look at their 800 square foot single wide. We're like, hey, because this was built in the 70s, they didn't maximize your lot. We can actually build a 1,500 square foot home. And that's pretty much what we'll do. We'll do the logistics of first seeing if it's feasible, how big of a home we can fit, what's it going to cost you? Do the numbers make sense? If it costs me $250K to remodel it, but my home at the end is going to be worth $400K, then boom, it makes so much sense for you to do the financing and make this work. So we'll do that at the consumer level. And then we also do that for the park owners as well. So the park owners, their incentive or what they're looking for is to raise value of their communities.
Sure.
And one is filling these vacant lots or replacing these old unused lots, bring a ton of value for them. And the other is how do we kind of analyze this so we can create more revenue for the park owner? And the ratio of having old homes removed and having new homes in their parks just have a whole different vibe to it, and it actually raises the value itself alone as well. So we help with the consulting for park owners as well.
Right on, man. So basically you're affecting the demand curve, right? Because not only are you uplifting the quality of the buildings that are in that park, but you're also filling gaps and reducing the number of available lots, which is creating additional demand. So the aesthetics of driving through the park, a family of 2 or 3 or 4 are saying, wow, this is a really nice place. We want to live here. Well, there's only 2 more lots available. And, so it gives the family a nice place to live. It gives the park owner a good return on investment. And obviously you're doing well, creating those homes. So yeah, seems like everybody's winning here.
Yeah. And that's, what's interesting is I love the fact that it's like a 3 or 4-way win. The residents, the society. I think that's one of the biggest things of entrepreneurship. And I'm very fortunate to have like friends in the Silicon Valley that help me open my mind to different ideas and concepts, and feeling that there is a win-win-win situation, right? And that's exactly what we're trying to accomplish here is, how do we build something that helps park owners, that also help residents get, a stepping stone towards home ownership at the same time, right? And that's what I love about this. It's really an ecosystem that benefits all.
And the interesting thing is the model is applicable everywhere, right? Because you're making it work in what I would argue is one of, if not the most expensive area of the country to do this, and you're doing it quite effectively, right? So I can only imagine what it's like to do this in Montana or Indiana or Georgia, where things cost at least a little bit less, right? And you still get the families still get the same benefit. The developer gets their benefit in terms of creating the homes, rehabbing the homes, and building new ones. Adding on to the space to create new ones. Again, you're directly affecting the look and feel of the park, as well as helping him sell lots, him or her to sell lots, right? That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So
Thanks,
question
man.
for you. How did you figure this out, that this would work?
Through pure frustration, honestly. It was, I think, I did a deep year or so trying to analyze housing and all the problems and all, like, how can we really benefit? And, I came to that realization that I was explaining earlier, is that there's this huge, the ownership element is so beneficial, and it's so crucial if there's a family that wants to get wealthier or get ahead, right? And the key to that is ownership. And I stumbled across these, I actually looked at Google Earth, and I'm looking at, hey, why is this land unused? What's this? And I was like, holy crap, there's so many of these weird shaped things. These are mobile home parks, and they're right across the street. There's ones right across the street from Google. There's ones right across the street from Samsung building. Like, these are high tech, high pay areas. And I'm like, and then I drive into it. I'm like, these are kind of low quality homes, but you go into these communities. Our personal stigmas of mobile home park are from Breaking Bad or from Eminem, and
Right.
we think they're just the worst and the lowest and unsafe of the situations. But you go into them, wow, these are actually pretty nice, right? The people in here are great, humble people.
Yep.
And they're the teachers of our area, and there's so much to be done. And the other element of how I found out is, one is like, these people, unfortunately, because of their situation, people aren't servicing them. People don't, there isn't a world of people that are helping mobile homeowners. And to me, that wasn't okay. So I just, got into it and really came to realize, and deep studied that this is a perfect financial model that actually makes sense. And it's keeping people to be able to live in our areas. And it's so crucial. But it was really by accident and through frustration. And I'm very grateful that I went through that past history of financial struggle, because that's really what drew me to every day to just try to figure this out. And how do we help these people?
That's awesome. Right? Kudos to you, really. Seriously, it's really impressive.
Thanks.
So I want to stay on track here, because we're coming up on the clock. We're getting there, but so I want to talk through the final four, which is our the 4 questions I ask everybody. So
okay.
Typically leaders like you and people that run companies, leaders tend to be readers, right? But these days, obviously, reading, it can be audiobooks, YouTube videos, conferences, physical books, whatever. So questions, it's a 2-part question. One, how do you consume information? How do you kind of sharpen the saw? And then also, I'm curious about who you're paying attention to these days.
Yeah. So I guess the first question is, keep in mind, like, I think the word resourcefulness is kind of the most important thing. And what I find is that people that go through a huge struggle financially, they end up having to be forced to be resourceful. And I think and I say that also, keep in mind, I had to drop out of college. I didn't have any formal education after that, but I literally learned everything through YouTube or through books and through that sort of thing, because the fact that I wanted to figure this out, I had to figure this out, right? And the big concept I want to express here is that the information's out there. It's just how resourceful we are of using that information so that we can build something, right? It's the key thing is resourcefulness, honestly.
Yeah.
So,
but you said something really interesting there. I'm gonna stop just for a second.
Yeah.
It was you said 2 sentences. I wanted to do this and I had to do this, right? And there's there's a difference between want and had, or want and must, right? One is, wow, I wish I could affect change, right? The other is, I have to, right? This has to happen. And I think you are clearly, you fall into the latter category, not the former, right? You had to do this, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Oh, totally. I mean, just knowing that I would be able to help one single family be able to really get out of that rat race felt so important to me. And then after helping one family, I was like, shoot, we got to help more. We got to help more and more. And that, tearing up. But like, I still tear up today when I see a family that felt like they could never afford anything be able to get their first home. It's insane.
It's something about turning the front door key on something you own, right?
Yeah.
When you talk about YouTube videos and all that, I'm curious who, so you answered how, or, how you consume. Who do you pay attention to these days in terms of, YouTube or whatever else you're paying attention to?
I feel like the stages and elements, I think what's interesting about what I learned from a lot of these entrepreneurs in the Silicon Valley is that you find out what your weaknesses are, and then you find out who you should follow and what you should be resourceful to reading.
Sure.
At my very hardest times, it's interesting, but Tony Robbins was a big psychology guy for me. It helped me stay motivated and want to make a difference and build energy and get motivated. And then, there's also the messaging side. There's Simon Sinek that I'm a huge fan of. He helps kind of really design these messages and how do we explain things so that people can understand and that sort of thing. And now I think one of our big problems is really how do we scale and grow and build processes. So that's kind of one thing that I'm still today trying to learn. How do we build better processes and systems? There's no person I'm actually following, but like EOS is a big one that we're getting into.
So Michael Gerber might be somebody you want to check out. So
yeah, that's
E-Myth, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And so I'm a recovering Silicon Valley technology dude. And so I was a Gerber guy before Gino Wickman. Well, Gino Wickman was probably in high school when I was reading Gerber's stuff. So, but the fact is that there's, if you want to build systems, those are the two people you should be paying attention to, right?
Yeah. And I think the advice comes to you when you need it, and it's contextual to you when you need it as well. Yeah. Right. So if my biggest problem is I want to understand marketing, I'm going to find who's the marketing guy that I should be listening to, reading, or following. If the problem is something else, then I'll chase that. Well,
it's what is it called? The reticular activation system, right? That if you need something, you start to see it in the world, right? If you want to go buy a car and you only want a white car, that's all you see for the next few days, right? Is, that's a white car. Exactly. Oh, I can't believe how many people have white cars, right? So yeah, no, I totally get that. So there was one word there that you used that I want to drill into. Advice. So I'm also curious about, and you mentioned Tony Robbins and Sinek and, a few others, but in your personal life, in your personal world, what was the best advice you ever got and who gave it to you?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm not ready for this. Let me think. So the best advice I've ever gotten, I think it's really interesting. This is going to be weird, but there was a time I was in high school and this really clicked for me at that time. I wanted to do so many things and I couldn't get anything done. And this high school teacher of mine said, Franco, you have to figure out what is your biggest priority and focus only on that. And when he said that, it just stuck with me even today. His name's Mr. James, but still today, we have 5 to 10 problems that we want to deal with, but we can never chase all 5 or 10. We have to, the more important thing is to identify which one is going to provide biggest impact for the rest to be able to thrive.
Yep.
And I think that's what's key. If it's really hard to pick one over the other, but it's necessary and it's required to be able to have progress.
Yeah.
So I'd say that's probably the biggest piece of advice that I've got.
Damn good advice. It's interesting. It just I'm smiling and as I'm listening to you tell the story because I had a mentor, actually a very close friend of mine now, Peter Black, who always used to say, because I was prone to doing, a lot of different things when I was working for him. And he's like, hey, keep the main thing. And I'm like, oh, got it. That's all I needed. And he's probably said it to me a dozen times. And, focus is a superpower if you can harness it. Right.
So, absolutely.
So let me ask you a loaded question here. If you had to do it all over again, what would you do different?
That is a loaded question.
They get easier from here, by the way.
So I'd say what's interesting. I really appreciate the way things panned out. And I don't know that, I think the problems and the difficulties are really necessary necessary for each thing to grow. But I think really understanding that people make the difference, and keeping good people, hiring good people. What I love about our company and what's really grown us is having caring people and really high quality people. And the people that work with us, also the ones that really make the impact, also didn't come from a huge schooling background or that sort of thing, but because they understood the impact that they were creating. They're so hardworking and relying on good people and educating good people of how they can create an impact. I think that's what I wish I'd known before. And I feel like I would have been able to grow faster before, but now we're doing that at a better level.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I mean, you get education in a lot of different places, right? I mean, I went to college, but I can tell you, I was actually on Twitter this morning going back and forth with a buddy of mine, and he had asked the question, what did you study and in college, or what's your degree in, and are you using it today? And I'm in real estate investing, right? So that's marketing and finance and all that. I was an English major and a mass communications minor, right? I mean, I learned how to communicate with people. That's about it, right? And do I use that? Yeah, probably. But that degree qualified me to be an English teacher or go get a grad degree, which I never got. And so it's interesting. Yeah, some of the smartest people I've met. The wealthiest guy I ever met was a plumber, and at some point I'm not going to take up time, but another real estate investor, and the smartest guy I know is my brother-in-law, who's he just retired, having been working in public works for 40 years. So he is legit, and worked in Silicon Valley, right? There are smart people there, but my brother-in-law is probably 10 to 15 points smarter than all of them. So it's you don't need a college degree. You certainly don't need a college degree to be successful at this, and you need to be resourceful, and you got to figure out how to persevere. So all right, so I've asked you the hard questions. Now I'm going to ask you the easy ones. So when you are not talking real estate, what do you like to do? How do you spend your free time?
Oh, I've always loved, I think as a kid, I've always wanted to be a videographer. I love video. So
Franco TV, is that where we're going?
Yeah. So just for fun, like there's no money involvement into it. I love making videos for small businesses and good food. So we love featuring vlogs of restaurants, of like these mom and pop restaurants and stories like that. So that's probably like my big hobby that I love doing.
That's very cool. So, all right. Well, hey, Franco, I've really enjoyed talking with you. Thank you again for all your experience and wisdom. If people want to reach out and learn more about you or get in touch with you on regarding your business or whatever, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, actually, it's on what you said. The link, all of our links are on www.franco.tv, or you could Google Franco Mobile Homes and you'll find us there. So yeah, we have YouTube channels where I really urge people to take a look at how quality these homes are and how high quality these communities are, because it'll shock you. Every time I have people watch it, it's shocking. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, Franco Perez, thank you so much for your time today. It's really good to see you, my friend. And
thanks, Ed.
We'll talk soon.
Awesome.
This has been the Real Estate Underground podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. It helps us grow. Until next time, happy investing.